This is the industrial side. Most industrial businesses are either won or lost in the day-to-day operations. These are conversations with the operators who run these firms, talking about how they run them, what works, and what doesn't.
Abigail Lind, how you doing today?
I'm lovely. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Things have been busy as always. I know you have a lot of stuff going on, new projects and stuff too.
Yeah, stay busy as we do.
It's a sickness, really. We probably need church or, priest, an exorcism,
I mean,
all of the above.
choose the good type of busy.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, that is relevant to the discussion because I think on this show we're talking about manufacturing, distribution, and industrial companies, and the way to stay busy is to sell stuff. But this isn't really industry that really recognizes that marketing is also how you sell stuff. This is where you come in. So maybe we should talk about your background a bit because you went from teaching English and leading cheerleaders in high school, teaching them how to run their program, and then now you're teaching large Fortune 500 manufacturers how to run their content programs. So, like, how did this all come together?
I did indeed. I started out as a high school English teacher and cheer coach. And the crazy thing is, don't underestimate how terrifying high schoolers are. But when you really get to know them, you realize they're actually just terrified.
Yeah.
But they really just want to be known. And turns out companies also just want to be known and they want their products to be known. So yeah, there are parallels.
Okay.
But I enjoyed teaching, but I just knew I wanted to grow on my own and, find new pathways. So I ended up kind of in between there getting my master's in English. I wanted to hone and craft my writing skills. And I'm really big observer and I'm a big, figure it out person. And so I think just having emotional intelligence, just like being really curious and knowing critical thinking, like being an English major is a big part of that. Having the research background. I actually also went into sales in between. So I did outside sales for a little bit and I learned a ton about business and relationships and putting it all together. And I'm not your average strange little stuck inside English major person. So I think the combination of understanding people, being curious and really loving to learn and how things work, especially in manufacturing, I know how to explain things in a way that helps people understand.
Well, I mean, I guess is the through line that you wanted to teach like difficult English texts to people in the earlier days. You wanted to teach being in front of people all the time as a cheerleader in the early days. And so you wanted to find an industry that would be as confusing as possible to teach. Like, are you just a glutton for punishment?
Definitely. I think you put it together way better than I did.
It's fair. I mean, but it's hard. It's hard because, like, in many ways. So it's interesting that the idea of inbound, like HubSpot and some of these other companies, like 10, 15 years ago, realized, oh, like we build our company around the product, and then we just put a bunch of content out, and then people come to us because the product's what's special. And they're selling technology, but manufacturers have always been selling an actual product. So it's like it's funny how like these other industries are basically trying to get more like manufacturers, and maybe manufacturers need to get more like these other industries. It's like an interesting parallel, I guess. It's I don't know. I mean, like there's you're building you're building a car. You're probably trying to have something uniform all of your locations. So you want to know something's really good. You could say it's really good because of the price. You could say it's really good because there's some sort of standard in your industry, or you could say it's really good because they just convinced you they're really good. And so that last one is something that's more kind of, I don't know, anybody can reach for that kind of, not anybody, but if you have the right people working with you, you can.
Yeah, I think that is such a huge, like, why behind why do we look for a certain like check mark on, on a piece of fabric or whatever it may be? Is it actually better, or have our minds just become accustomed to looking for certain brands? And I think it really comes down to value, not necessarily in cost, because people will pay more for things that they want, whether they realize it or not. And a lot of what's behind the scenes are the marketers. And unfortunately, traditionally, and still it's happening today, is that marketing is not always valued in more traditional industries like manufacturing. So, I'm still kind of in that fight with Even some of the clients I work with now, it's like, how do we show the value of what we're doing, to the C-suite or to whomever that's the battle. Like, we're doing this work and it's really important, but the sales cycles are so long. So how do we
Yeah.
prove it?
Yeah, if you have a 3-year sales cycle and you don't generate a single lead in the first 6 months, it looks like everything you did just kind of failed. Like, so is that a big thing in this industry in terms of working with marketing partners? Just hire, fire, like move from agency to agency to agency?
Not necessarily, but I mean, it's part of it, because a lot of people, if they don't see that immediate value, they,
Yeah.
they might just get rid of you.
Put you on the
But
guillotine.
there are some leaders who get it, and it depends on if you want to take that on.
Yeah.
I think might be part of the process. There's just, I don't know if I want to get into all that, but
No, that's fair. That's fair. I know potential customers who listen to this don't want to go into what's right or wrong.
well,
But
I mean,
yeah.
you have to understand that it is a long game, is I guess what I need to say. Marketing is not always, it is not a just, one and done. It is a long game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the entry point to marketing is always lead gen in some way. Like, and that's a commodity. It's like produce a human being that we can try to sell. That's valuable, but it's kind of, there's a lot of ways to get someone to just call a number or like submit their information, put their email in, and they really have no idea who you are or why it would work. They have no idea it actually won't work. They just were convinced by something to go forward. So the idea that you know how to like teach somebody how to position their whole company, their products, the differentiation between the competitors, that stuff is like, I mean, it's like fundamentals kind of.
Yeah. And I will say alongside that, some teams that I work with or what I've done with teams is also sales enablement, because a lot of times manufacturing, they're going to believe in sales. They're like, we know we need sales, so we have a sales team, but can marketing help sales? Absolutely. But does marketing exist for sales? Not necessarily. So you have to see they are two separate entities. Marketing can help enable sales to do better. They can give them assets that they need, etc. They do have their own function and they can help them, but you have to have alignment there. And that's a whole topic in itself.
Right, which was been going on for probably.
But I mean, there's a lot to that too. And even if you just look that up, if you're not familiar with the terms, listeners, that's a great thing to look into.
But I'm curious because you worked in sales yourself. You said inside and outside sales?
Yes. Well, more so outside when I did sales.
Okay.
But I'm familiar with both sides.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, who do you think owns the pipeline? Because, like, the especially in these industries, it would be like, well, obviously, sales owns the pipeline. They're the ones who are creating all the business. Well, then, if you say marketing owns the pipeline and there's no pipeline, then is marketing doing anything?
I mean, I think it's different. I would say there's different types of leads. There's marketing qualified leads and there's sales qualified leads. Marketing warms up leads at the top of the funnel to get them familiar with information, helps educate them, hey, I at least know I've heard of this brand. I've heard of what they do. I've heard of their products, whatever, at least gets them familiar. That's a marketing qualified lead. We might get a name or we might even just get them awareness. We might not know who they are yet. It only becomes a sales qualified lead if they're even ready or they submit some information to us. So I don't think there's an owning necessarily until they move a little bit farther down. So marketing versus sales qualified lead, maybe that's the difference.
Yeah, and it's hard to like. I guess for some companies, it's probably hard to understand. Like, would we love to produce 50,000 marketing qualified leads this year if we didn't know if any of them would buy anything this year? Like, should we spend money on that or not? Which obviously, like, if you have to go through every stage of the cycle, like you're investing in it this year, maybe next year you're going to take advantage of that. But I guess you work with larger companies, so it's not so much of a short set. Well, it can be based on like the public markets and stuff like that. But in many ways, they're bigger corporations. They're looking for the future. They're not looking at what can we do next month? What can we do the next 10 years? So that stuff starts to make more sense. But some of the listeners here are maybe on the other side of like the smaller companies, like say 50 employees, 100 employees, maybe even less than that. And so, they got technical sales. They were the technical salesperson. They hired 2 technical salespeople. That worked. Then they hired 5 more. Now they have
Mhm.
10. And the model has been just call more people every year.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
eventually go to the trade shows, call more people.
Mhm.
Eventually you'll get the income to come in. But like
Yeah.
at what point does it even make sense to almost operate more like those bigger companies and be like, well, if we know it's going to take so long, like we have this SQL bucket or a sales qualified lead process or whatever, which could literally be just cold call the like
Yeah.
the leader in the operations side or the procurement side and like just keep calling them, buy them drinks, go to the trade show, get on a boat, go to the golf club and like play golf and like eventually they'll go and they'll convert and like this MQL idea, like let's have people like being nurtured, I guess is a way to put it, or
Mhm.
like let's have pipeline being nurtured is a better way to say it. Because just because you're sending out content, I mean, I guess you call that nurturing, but just because you're doing marketing stuff doesn't mean you're necessarily nurturing that person, but you are nurturing this idea of like this could be this little baby could grow up to be a lead one day. It could
Yes.
grow up from a little baby to one day being a real lead. And so
I
go ahead.
counter you and ask, do you really know
It's hard to.
about time and efficiency? Because as you grow, as the company grows, what starts happening is sales without marketing doesn't really have a way to get things like assets. They're like building their own stuff. There's no consistency across, therefore, lack of alignment with messaging for products. They don't have places to send people. Are they really keeping track of information? Maybe they have a CRM, maybe they just have a spreadsheet.
Right.
And then what happens to their spreadsheet if they leave the company? There's a lot of turnover in sales. Sales, what happens to those contacts? They might go with them to the next company. They're not supposed to do that, but they probably do. And then, where's all this information that company should own? Maybe there's a CRM, cool. But who's really looking at the analytics? Who's really doing that back end admin? And if the salesperson is doing it, then they're not spending their time doing revenue generating activities that they should be doing. So if you really look at it, a marketing person is going to save a lot.
Yeah.
But that's really more, on the marketing side. And I mean, I'm talking more on marketing, and content comes in, and I'm specifically a writer, not necessarily a marketer. However, I know marketing.
Yeah.
But it's just, if you really look at the numbers, I think it would make sense.
Yeah. No, I mean, you've talked about like it gets back to messaging and like this is these industries, these industrial companies, it's hard to distill like basically like they could be like zeros and ones in tech. Like that like there's so many specifications and all this stuff. So what you're trying to do with the writing, it seems like is make it so that people at various levels, because of course we know like a lot of stuff is more like buying committees and not just like me convincing you to buy something today. So people at different roles, different levels, different like people who care about different things. Like you got to know how to like be able to say more than like, well, this was cast for over 6 days, and we use the best machinery here. Our fabrication department is perfect. Like I don't know if I'm just kind of like in procurement. I'm like, cool, bud. I don't know what that means, but won't you send me a quote?
Yeah.
So that's that. So yeah, you're really on the messaging angle. I'm curious if you have any like stories about like how that's actually like bad messaging to good messaging, and like what that's actually done to a real company in like one of these industrial companies.
Yeah. So
Not to name names. I know you have like NDAs and stuff.
yeah, unfortunately, some of my clients I cannot because of NDAs. I do have a few clients I work with that I can readily talk about, and I have some testimonials and things like that. So happy to do so. I will say for examples of can you refer?
Yeah, so here's what I'm thinking. Like when I hear you're saying you're gonna get the messaging better in terms of value prop for different like stakeholders and things like that, which sounds kind of insulting. Excuse me, I used to be a consultant, so it comes back. But I mean, really, what I'm saying is I want to sell something and not have the only question be how much. And like, what does the other person care about besides how much? It's different based on the person. And so I assume in your projects, you're trying to get like, what do you call it? Like personas or avatars or whatever of who are the 20 people some of these big companies who would have the buying decision on a smaller one. Maybe it's three, but yeah, what do they actually care about? And then like, what is the writing doing exactly? Like, because you like, for instance, you've talked about when we've spoken before that you do blogs and stuff like that, but like, do people read blogs anymore? So I wonder like what is like what works, I guess is what I'm asking. Like, do you have an example of something that's worked pretty well?
Okay. Yeah. So there is one company I work with called AMAROK. They do electric fencing for all different sizes of properties, but pretty mid, large, all over the US.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a campaign last year where basically the premise was security guards versus electric fencing. I mean, that was an issue that kept coming up over and over because they would approach a head of security and say, okay, so you have security guards, why?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, well, because, it only costs $40,000 or blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
and then, all these things came up. It was all this pushback. So basically the salespeople were saying, we need a way to combat all of this. So we came up with the marketing team, and then I came alongside them. And the campaign name was Think Like a Criminal, Defend Like a Pro.
I like that.
So basically it was like, get yourself into the mindset of what a criminal thinks like, and then how can you get ahead of that as a business? Because what happens is most of the time businesses always are reactive rather than proactive.
Right. Yeah.
They lose things on their property. They have to, something happens, and then they have to, go back and do all this, the cost and the blah and
Yeah.
So the first thing we did was a bunch of research. So I was tasked with putting together basically a guide, and they asked me to put together a 10-page guide. After design, it ended up being 35 pages, but it basically was stats. It was, information about the industry. I went through a bunch of different industries who had yards, who had equipment in the yard. What would it cost if they had a loss, if they had a break-in? What do you lose if this? What is insurance costs? What are all these different costs? So it's basically if you have a break-in and you have a security guard and they're on the other side of the yard and they can't get to this spot because they're just one human, what's going to happen? So, we do all this research, do all the cost analysis, and put it together. So while they're doing review of that article, they also had me write some other pieces. So the good thing is, once you do research for one big piece, you've already got some great writing that you can kind of pick from to use for other pieces.
Yeah.
So that is, I will say, for even smaller companies, a great thing about content is it's recyclable. I'm all about recycling.
It's good for the environment.
So I do love to write for sustainable companies. So
I guess my question would be distribution. I don't know if you've worked with smaller companies versus the bigger ones that probably have, millions in an email list over decades and decades and decades. But, if you're starting to try to get the same sort of benefit that you're talking about, some fencing company wanting there to be clear research that says hey, the security guard is not thinking like a criminal. They're just going to figure out how to subdue the security guard. But if you have electric fence, it's better. But how do you get that to anybody to actually look at it and think about it?
Well, and that's, yeah. So what they did was, created email sequences with, some of it was from sales. Some of it was, maybe lists that sales already wanted to contact. Some of it was, I know they can do matching with LinkedIn. Do these titles of LinkedIn and do in-mail. Yeah. Some of it was, I'm not sure if they did paid advertising, but you can do matching based on a profile.
Yeah.
Or a title. So they took phrasing and then just reworked it in all these different ways.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because here's the thing, they knew the pain point. If you know a pain point of a business and you know that your solution solves for that, that is what you have to grip onto and use in your content.
Yeah.
So it's finding the pain point and showing your value, and that's the middle. And that's where you have to that's what you have to get to. I mean, there's so many different examples of this. It really depends on, it's so many different things because every industry, every product, service, et cetera, is so different. But that's the premise that I look for, is I'm always trying to say, okay, what's your differentiator? What's your value? What are we trying to get them to do at the end? So yeah, I mean, they're distributing basically, I think the main thing that they started with were these emails, because the salespeople knew what the arguments were. So they were going back to these companies, hey, we have this information, we have this proof. And so then they offered a site assessment. So the marketing started out with the emails, and the marketer who I was partnering with, she emailed me back and said, the first email, I already handed off 20 leads to the salesperson.
Wow.
Because they were like, wow, those numbers are crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not always like that, but they knew the problem that they needed to solve and they grabbed onto it.
So sales knows the pain point and marketing knows how to communicate it in the right way.
Yes. So, I mean, that's the thing about sales and marketing coming together effectively.
And I've heard, I mean, I've started to see more on LinkedIn and stuff, people who have like kind of like sales enablement roles, which I mean, I assume that means that they're trying to literally be the human resource to do that. But like in lieu of that, like we talked about time allocation, because you don't know what it's going to lead to. So like have you seen any good best practices in terms of like, let's have because this is the problem. Sometimes there could be like a weekly or bi-weekly meeting between sales and marketing where marketing wants to know that sales did something with their leads, and sales wants to know that marketing got more leads, and also the leads you gave us suck. And so it's not really time to sit down and do deep work and be like, here are all the pain points. Yeah. I mean, you can send an email and say, hey, what are all the pain points? But I'm not sure. I assume people wouldn't be paying you if it was that easy. So I guess like how does it like play out to get like the right, I guess, information out of the folks who are more directly dealing with the customer, for people who are maybe more writers like yourself and maybe not as like product familiar, to be able to produce something good? I
think you definitely have to have a set plan. If you're going to have meetings like that, you need to have set plans of what you want to get through, because sales and marketing are not always going to think alike, the same goals. So, set plan with even time limits can help, but also a lot of times if I know I have a piece that I'm writing about and I need to interview a subject matter expert, let's call it, because sometimes I'm talking to a technical salesperson or an outside salesperson or, an engineer or whoever it may be. And because I know they're the ones on the front line, they have the information that I need. And I kind of have to show them that I know how to level set with them, because they don't always want to give me the time of day, or like somebody was like, you need to be on this call, and they get on like, okay. And then, I just gotta get in.
Yeah. And it's hard to engage with something like that, because I feel like what I've seen, in just like not specifically in like writing or anything of that nature, but trying to get like maybe like the knowledge of the people kind of who are closer to it, it's always better one-on-one. But then like when you have timelines and projects and there's so many people now, like, oh, we need to talk to 1,000 people. Like, it's like, how do you like figure out what's the best way to make the approach? Like, this is a team working session, and then like people who haven't been able to get the one-on-one attention to be able to like talk about why they're frustrated, or maybe think that nothing is really going to come of this, like you can't really have the time for that. But if you were to sit down individually with everybody, like you'd need 1,000 people to do that, and you wouldn't meet the timeline. So it's like a push-pull.
Yeah, well, you have to realize you can't do a one-on-one with everybody. But if you can strategically find the people who really get it within the team and make time for the meetings with those people, and then create content around that. And there's one team specifically that I've done this with, and things have changed dramatically, because it's like we used to have to fight to get time on the calendar. And now we're getting emails like, this article is amazing. It shows XYZ, and we can't wait to do another one. And now it's like people are lining up because they want to be the topic of the next article, because once they see the value, because they're using that now. They're like, I was able to send this to a customer and they loved it. And they're like, wow, Because, okay, do people read blogs? Well, it turns out,
Yeah.
and even if they don't read every word of it, content is like an ever hungry monster. Okay. You can say, okay, nobody is reading these blogs, but like the internet is always pulling whatever it can.
Yeah.
So you have to be updating information about your company, or else it's going to just keep getting pushed farther, farther, farther. So, I mean, unfortunately, it's just the way of the world.
Yeah, and speaking of the way of the world, like I wonder because I mean, beginning of this, we were talking about like how this is important in terms of the content, like basically putting the pain points in the language of the reader. But who is the reader? Is it a human or is it an AI bot? And like, should people write for both, or is it shifting right for the AI?
Great question. One that I love and hate. So, and of course, now when I tell people what I do, and then I'm a content writer for marketing, the first question is, what do you think about AI? Like, are you still gonna have a job? And I'm like, I'm not worried about that at all because I'm very needed.
Yeah.
But honestly, I see it as one and the same. Writing for humans and writing for whoever your favorite robot of the moment is. Because, and I will say, I've done a lot of research, but an article that comes to mind recently, one by Google, that said, SEO is the core of AEO and GEO, which AEO is answer engine optimization, which is basically like long form keywords. If someone just types in a whole question that's like super long into Google, which people do all the time, or they're asking it into their, phone or their speaker, whatever. It's pulling information, right? And then generative engine optimization, GEO, that's more with AI. But Google is using, or any search engine is using all of those things all the time. So whether you are asking it into a search engine or into your AI, it's pulling information from the internet. So you need to work on your SEO to work on your AEO and GEO. It's still all going into the same starter point. However, SEO is based more just on your website, and AEO and GEO are based on also other places on the internet. So like your LinkedIn profile and your, maybe your socials and all the other things.
Reddit and stuff like that.
Right. Because one way you can find out is by going into your AI friend and saying, what do you know about company name? Just ask it. And that's how you find out, like what it knows about you, your company, etc. It's kind of cool / creepy to find out, but it is helpful because it gets you there. But the point I'm getting at is Google prioritizes human-centric language over AI slop, basically, is what it said.
Can we quantify?
It knows robotic language. It knows the patterns of AI written language, and it knows the difference. And I read another article recently that basically analyzed the patterns of AI language versus human language. And AI language is like a box. There's just no true patterned thinking to it. There's no critical thinking involved.
Yeah.
Whereas true critical thinking human creative language has true patterns. So, and like you can tell, I mean, most people can tell. You open an email that someone obviously wrote with AI and you're just like, are you kidding me? You so rude. It's just it feels so impersonal. So if you don't want to read that and you don't want to read it on a website, Google knows that they don't want to give you that information because they want to give good information to people on the internet. So if people are bouncing off of those pages, they're going to deprioritize those pages. So people need me at the end of the day.
Isn't this kind of self-destructive for the AI tools, though? If they know that they will deprioritize, because it's the same companies doing search that are doing AI, and they know that they'll deprioritize for the most part. Well, there's some differences, like Anthropic and ChatGPT, but it's kind of all like fusing together. So they know that what people want back doesn't look like what they actually write for.
And you know who they're hiring? Really great thinkers and creatives and writers to try to make them better. And they've come they've come a little ways, but they're still not there, because how do you truly mimic critical thinking and creativity. I think those tools do really well with technical things, with like tech coding and things that are very logical, but with creativity and putting together descriptions and words and logical thinking the way that I do, in a way that bridges the gap for people from manufacturing to thinking about it from a buyer perspective in the way that I do. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-AI, but I'm also not completely holistically for it in every aspect of, it doesn't need to be there.
Yeah, yeah, and I think my last question would be, because that kind of the way that you're phrasing it, like, would you say that the difference between good writing is bad writing is that, like, with the good writing you can see the critical thought and creativity, and the bad writing you can't? Like what, like when you produce your own product, when do you look at it and say, "Wow, I just did great," versus like, "I need to rewrite this a bunch of times"? Because every time I write anything, I say I need to rewrite this a bunch of times, so I can't really tell.
I think a big part of good writing is clarity. It's clear, it's specific, it makes sense on a first read, whether or not you're in the industry. I mean, I should be able to open a website and read the main homepage and understand what you do and why you do it, whether or not I'm in that industry. So that's what I help people do. Now, once I get to the more technical pages and products, etc., okay, there's a lot of different levels there, and I expect that. And when I get into the articles that are on very specific topics and I'm writing for those different personas and audiences, and, like, I'm writing for a steel maker and I'm talking about metallurgy and, or specific engineering and all these things, yes, there's going to be different depths there, but it still should be clear and understandable. So good writing is clear, understandable, but also sometimes I think I'm rewriting a product page that was already existing and it needs to be redone. And they're just trying too hard. It's like they want to make, a lake out of a pond. It's just a pond. It's okay. It's okay that it's a pond. We love a pond. Like, let it be what it is. And
Does that mean more concise? Or what do you mean by that?
yeah, brevity is the soul of wit. Okay. Like, I don't need to explain something in 3 sentences that it can be 1 sentence. So I think that's a big part of it, is just people just want to get to the point when they open a page or look at your whatever it is. Like, people don't have time. They're busy.
No, that's what we'll start and end on that. Everybody's busy. Everybody's trying to milk the juice of what they can out of their brain every single day. So appreciate you coming on and kind of helping us think through this. It's an area that, I don't know, it's it's kind of esoteric in a way, where it's like, we communicate well. Like, that's why we're in business. Like, it's hard to assess yourself to see where maybe you could do significantly better with different content and different perspectives. So it's a good thing to have.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, if people listen to this and they feel like they want to get in touch with you, like, what would be a good way to do that? Like, email, LinkedIn, what works best for you?
Yeah. So my website is abigailgracewriting.com. There is a contact form there, but also I'm on LinkedIn, Abigail G. Lind, or Abigail Grace Writing is my LinkedIn company page. Same with I have Instagram on there as well with my company page, and building out
Everywhere
on that. Often the cobbler without shoes. Build content. And I will be speaking at Content Marketing World this fall in Denver.
I'll put a link
How
to that in there
to
too.
create, or how to speak to SMEs about their content and do that well. So that'll be fun, and looking forward to connecting more.
Awesome. I appreciate it, Abigail. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Always good talking to you.
Same to you. Have a good one.
See you soon.